Amen. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. This is not the Christmas day or Christmas Eve yet. Please mark your calendar. Tuesday from 4 to 5, that's where actual Christmas Eve going to be. But I kind of wanted to, in the spirit of Christmas, talk about this a little bit. Well, actually, the whole entire month of December, we are kind of gearing towards the Christmas. So today I wanted to talk on this topic of birth of Christ as documented in the book of Matthew chapter 2. And the topic of this talk would be the shadow and light of Christmas. But before I talk about this, I wanted to, maybe you don't know, this last Saturday was the solstice. That was the, we call it winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. And also, astronomically, that was the first day of winter. So, congratulations. Yesterday was the first day of winter. And today, for those of you who like spring and summers, want to congratulate because today is the second day of winter. Very cold and very short days. The reason why I'm telling you this is that on Friday, last Friday, a person barged into my office and he says, "Whoa, I didn't know that you have so many cars parked on your parking lot at my office." And I said, "Well, it's all cars, clients of my tenant or the neighbor, tanning salon." You know, tanning salon, I never understood this business. A lot of people apparently like to go to the tanning salon and get this, tan. And surprisingly, a lot of people come actually in this cold winters, short days. Maybe they want to get vitamin D. I don't know what it is, but a lot of clients actually come to this business tanning salon at this time. Coincidentally, there is something that we called SAD. It's seasonal affective syndrome. Seasonal affective syndrome is described as seasonal, depression almost. When people don't have enough light in their bodies and they feel seasonal blues. They feel depressed, they sometimes lose sleep, sometimes they sleep all the time, they're having eating disorder, sometimes they don't have appetite, sometimes they eat a lot. Like in my case, I eat a lot. And so many other different things. And that's official, SAD, seasonal affective disorder, not enough light. Sometimes people go to Florida to get some more sunlight. Sometimes people go to the tanning salons. Sometimes people go to bed and sleep the entire day. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is this Christmas holiday is just like that. It has a lot of shadows and light in the same time. On one hand, it's a very joyful, very bright holiday. On the other hand, you go to the store, you think about all the list of different things that you need to buy, the gifts that you need to buy, the Christmas tree, relatives, all these meetings that you need to do together, and especially if you have broken family, if you have some issues with marriages and so on, it's like very hard for you. So there is a light on one hand and shadows and darkness on the other hand. It's like the other side of the moon. In Forest Park, we were driving the other day with my family, and you have this bright night lights. They show it. It's very pretty, very joyful, very festive, I would say. The thing is that they are operating only in the nights, in the darkness of the night. They don't do it during the day because you don't see them. And so when you read this story of Christmas from the Bible, you see that a lot of events described in those accounts are actually happening during the night. The shepherds saw the angels during the night. The Magi's or wise men who came to worship Jesus, they saw the star. When do you see the star in the sky? In the night sky time, right? You see the star. So the interesting point that I'm trying to make is that Christmas has something to do with light, but it also has something to do, the other side of Christmas has something to do with darkness and shadows that we deal with. I am not sure if I'm talking to somebody here, but many people can attest to the fact that Christmas is not just all light and joy, but it has something to do with sadness and shadows. Shadows that come from the past. Shadows from some of the pain and hurts that we experience, and each time when I experience Christmas or go through Christmas, somehow I feel sad. Shadow and light of Christmas. Now, the story that we are going to go through today is written in book of Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2. And it has three different, accounts, I would say. It has account of the king, the light, and the plan of God. The account of the true king, the account of the light that the darkness could not overtake, and the plan of God, the order of God in the midst of chaos. That's all that you can find in the Matthew 2 from 1 to 16. But before we go into this, I want to give you this wonderful quote by theologian Frederick Buechner, who says, "The child born in the night among beasts." Do you see the contrast? Light and darkness, light and shadows. The sweet breath and steaming dung of the stable. We are talking about the birth of a child. God show up on the earth, and you have this manure of the beasts around us. Sometimes I look at the Christmas, and instead of joy and celebration, I see a lot of pain and suffering and the dung. The child is born to save us all. That's another contrast. We have a lot of smart people. We have a lot of intellectual people, powerful people. But we need to have a child who would save us all, because we cannot do it. Politicians cannot do it. Intellectuals could not do it. Powerful people, rich people could not do it. We need to have a child who doesn't have anything to save us from our problems and brokenness. And I pray that by the end of this message today, you go home encouraged that there is the true king, not an impostor. And amidst the darkness of your life and brokenness of your life, there is a light that brings life. And also, in the middle of the chaos in your life, and you feel like everything is falling apart, there is a divine order and design in the middle of that storm that you might be going through. God is leading you, and it feels like it doesn't make any sense. But in reality, it has this divine order and purpose in your life. That's the prayer that I have. Now, the base scripture from Matthew 1 and 2. This is just the beginning of this Christmas story. In beginning, the second part of the verse 1, Magi, or to simply say wise men, that was not kings like we sometimes sing in the nativity songs, or you see in these pictures. Those were not kings. Those were wise men from the east who usually would anoint people for kingship, but they themselves were not the kings. Magi, in fact, let me just give you a little bit of disclosure here. A lot of time in the culture, in the nativity scenes, you see a lot of stuff that is not biblical, has nothing to do with the Bible. I just took some time recently, and this new show came out 2024 called Mary, that would put in the screen the accounts from the Bible relating to Christmas. And I was watching it, and I was like laughing. It was so funny that it has nothing to do with the Bible. I mean, you could see this show. I mean, if you are a director of this show, at least read the Bible once, at least just one gospel, and then put this show at least a little bit closer to the Bible. But no, I saw so many different ridiculous things in this show. I saw Joseph, who was fighting Romans. He would grab the sword from the Roman, and then he would go and fight the Satan with that sword. And where do you see that in the Bible? And so many other different things. I was like, wow, this is so, it has nothing to do with the Bible. So let me just go ahead and give you the biblical account of this story. Magi from the east came, and so east of Israel was what we call today Iraq. Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, but from that perspective it was Babylon, and asked, where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? Now, they came to Herod, to Jerusalem, where Herod was presumably a king of all Jews. And Herod himself was not a Jew. It was installed by Roman power to be a king over that area. So this Magi came to Herod, who was extremely unstable mentally. He was a very smart guy. He was extremely successful builder, architect even. He built the temple. But he had this paranoia about his throne and his power. And he even killed his 2 sons because he was afraid that they would take power from him. So imagine these magi came to, or wise men, came to Herod and they're like, okay, so where is the king of Jew? And he was like, huh? I am the king of Jew. And so we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. There are a lot of problems in this statement. Number one, they said, where is the king of Jews? That was the red flag for Herod. And then they say, we saw his star in the sky. There is a divine order of things. I don't want to go into this area of stars right now because, as you know, I am against any kind of astrology. And I'm not so much against the astrologists because those are just the crooks or maybe even demon-possessed people. But I'm also against those people who read astrologies. And I believe that if you read astrology, you need to repent because this is very bad. Astrologers, any astrology, comes from demonic domain. That's just to make a record straight. However, did you know that God wrote, I personally believe that God wrote the history of man in the constellation of the stars. And you can see all the constellations that speak to the Lion of Judah and all the major events of the history of humanity. I just believe that. It's actually in the Bible. Has nothing to do with astrology. Has something to do with the wisdom and grandeur of God. But in this particular case, there was a star, a shining object. And a lot of people still debate as to what exactly it was because it was alive. It was following or pointing to the location, geolocation of Christ. Some people believe that that was a glory of God, Shekinah glory. I don't know. Nobody really knows. If somebody tells you what the star was, let me just tell you right now, they don't know. They just speculate. So I'm not going to speculate. I don't know. Nobody knows. No theologians knows. Nobody knows. It was a star that pointed to the location where Jesus was. And these magi, or wise men, they were triggered by this celestial phenomena. And somehow they figured that the king of Jew was born. I want to give you this quote by Rick Warren. He says, and there is no better time than Christmas to become the kind of seekers the wise men embodied. Wise people seek Christ. That's a good phrase. But wise people not just seek Christ, but also wise people worship Christ. So if you are wise, you worship Christ. If you are fool, you worship any other cause in this world. That's one point that I want to emphasize today. And so they came as wise people to worship Christ. And the reason why it's important to talk about this is that when we see around and we see some shadow of Christmas, we see some brokenness, we see some pain, we see some hurt, we see some chaos around us. The best case or the best thing that you can do is worship Jesus amidst of the chaos and the problems and the darkness of this world. What do? I made a decision, a wise decision. Everything is so turbulent and they are stormy and dark sometimes. But I'm choosing in this Christmas to worship Him who brought light into this world. Now, the first point that I want to emphasize is that He was the King. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit because actually to set the stage, I'm going to give you this quote by C.S. Lewis, and then I explain what I mean. C.S. Lewis says that enemy-occupied territory, that is what this world is. It's a dark world. It's the world that's been occupied for a long time, for ages, by the enemy of human souls. And he continues, Christianity is the story of how the rightful king has landed, you might say landed in the skies, and is calling us all to take part in a great campaign of sabotage. We are living in the enemy's territory, my friend. What we do right now, we are engaged in the act of the sabotage in this earth, to come together and to say, I am not going to live the way how this world lives. I am going to worship my eternal King, Jesus Christ. Because everybody else lives under spell of this other kingdom, a kingdom. So basically imagine this, we have the reason why Herod was so disturbed, because he was a king. And Jesus was the king. Herod was an impostor. And the reason why he felt insecure, and he felt like somebody is going to take his power, because he knew that he doesn't have the platform for his power. Jesus came here, rightful king, even as a baby, but he knew that he was the king, the rightful king in this earth. Now, when we are talking about incarnation, do you know that Jesus was the only one being on this earth who lived before he was born? That was Jesus. So when he was born on this earth, he already lived before as the Son of God from the very beginning of the world. Eternity past, we call it. Now, when he came here as a baby, that was the beginning of colonization of this earth. Before him, the whole earth was covered in the darkness. We had some righteous people, we had children of Israel who worshiped the Lord, but the whole earth was cursed and covered with darkness. And all of a sudden, we had one person who came here and was born in Bethlehem, who was having a plan to colonize. What is colonization? Colonization is when you take over the territory and introduce your own culture and your own rule and your own law over that territory. And that culture that existed before it becomes irrelevant. We just completely remove that culture. We don't coexist together. We bring our own rule and our own culture over that territory. That's what Jesus did. Now, before I move on, just want to make this clear. Jesus did not come to coexist peacefully with other culture and other beliefs. That was not his intention. Jesus does not share room with other world religions like Islam, Buddhism, and other religions. Jesus says, I came here to exterminate any other religions and to establish one throne, which is the kingdom of the God Almighty over this earth. And he is the king. So that's why, listen what happens in Matthew 2:3, when King Herod heard this news from the wise men, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. In other words, they were shocked and shaken because the kingdom of God came to this earth. Each time when we see Christ establishes his throne in people's lives, the kingdom of darkness is shaken. A lot of people don't understand that when you come and become a Christian, they think that everything is going to be very easy and nice from that point on. Yes, you will have God on your side, but that doesn't mean everything will be easy, because the king of darkness is shaken and disturbed, to the point, the story goes, that they wanted to kill the baby. He wanted to kill the baby, exterminate the baby, because there is a conflict. And my point is this: when we are talking about birth of Christ, we have a lot of different reactions that we can choose. We can be indifferent, like this religious elite was indifferent. So when Herod invited all these priests and all these learned people to share where the child is born, to kill the child, they knew that the child was supposed to be born in Bethlehem, and somehow they didn't care. They were just doing their own little things in the temple, all this, religious stuff, rituals, but they couldn't care less. The other reaction was like King Herod. So one reaction is indifference, another reaction is confrontation and persecution. My question is this: in your Christmas story, do you cling to your throne, or you, just like these wise people did, you worship the king? The only one reaction that you can have, the right reaction, is to worship the king. And you say, I don't care about my throne anymore. Now listen how it applies in a practical sense. Usually when we hear the story that Herod actually killed all the babies 2 years and younger in Bethlehem, we are shocked. And we say, wow, how cruel that must have been. But do you know how many babies today are being killed in the hospitals? Because we say, I want to sit on the throne of my career. I want to kill that baby because it actually stops me to achieve education. I want to cling to my throne, and I'm going to kill that baby. It happens today, just like it happened 2,000 years ago. Nothing changes. I'm following the events in the world arena. Recently, this guy, Bashar Assad, was ousted from Syria, as you probably know from the news. And I like to see the documentary, how he lived, and he lived in the extremely wealthy and extravagant kind of a way, where all the other people in Syria were actually poor. And when I was looking documentary about his life, his father actually, Bashar Assad's father, established this rule in Syria. And I was watching the way how at that time, the Soviet Union put so much money and so much resources into this dynasty, Assad's dynasty. They were building different kind of businesses and manufacturing, and so much money was poured into this situation. Not in the right account. Imagine if all this money I was thinking when I was watching documentary, all this money that they put into this Syria, they would invest into their own country, like education, well-being of their own people. No, they were putting into some pretense, false idea. Now, all this year passed, this family was ousted from Syria, and all this money and investment went down the sewer line. My thinking was this: when you follow some causes in your life, like this King Herod, he built the temple. Magnificent building, beautiful, glorious building. Nothing left from that building. Everything was destroyed. And yet, there was one cause. This Magi, wise men, they found very obscure, funny even, place to invest. Baby Jesus, who was poor, didn't have anything going for him, with one exception: he was the king. I wonder sometimes what kind of cause you invest your time and efforts and resources. I wonder sometimes if we ignore, and it relates to anybody, it relates to me, if we ignore baby, the king, something small and in the human level insignificant, and we chase something glorious that will go down the drain because it was based on the human efforts, and it's just a king, not the king. I need to move on, but I want to focus on another aspect of the story. They were saying, "Where is the one who has been born king of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." The star that rose, the source of light. The Bible says, actually, in another account of Christmas story in John 1 and 1 and 5. Let me just give you the verse of 5. Actually 4 and 5. In him was life, that's Jesus, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Jesus was the light. Now, I already mentioned that the world is immersed in this darkness. You know, I watched a few days ago, there was a press conference of President of Russia, Putin. It was like 4 hours press conference. And I'm a very busy guy. I don't really have 4 hours in my life. But in this case, I wanted to kind of listen what this guy was saying. You know, the guy who is waging war right now in Ukraine. And so I was basically listening this 4 hours of his press conference. And I was amazed. I'm telling you, I even told my wife, I said, look, how crazy that is that this entire country, the entire country of Russia, they are applauding the guy. They are almost like worshiping the guy. You should see the way how they talk to him, like he's God. And all these people are smart people. Do you know that Russian people are very smart people sometimes? They even stole nuclear technology from America. That's how smart they are. And so they build their own nuclear bomb. They're extremely shrewd and smart people, but they don't see it. They don't see the tyrant sitting in the Kremlin and killing his own people and other people around the globe. They don't see, they worship him. Why? Because of the darkness. And let me just tell you this, it's not just Russia. In this country, if you're sitting here, you're like, well, that's good that we are not Russian. In this country, we have the same thing. Do you remember the protests in the universities? Very, very smart people, they were going out of their classrooms and protesting the war in Palestine, the war against terrorists. So they don't see it. They're like, yeah, well, actually, you know what, we need to protect terrorists. Free Palestine. What is that? What does it mean, Free Palestine? Do you even know what it is? No, they go to school, they get their advanced degrees, but they don't see it. They are in the darkness. Sometimes I feel like the entire world, doesn't matter what country you are just like in the darkness, and people who live in this environment, they're like zombies. They don't see, they're just moving by some power, and they don't understand what it is moving them, what it is that they are doing in their lives. They are immersed in the total darkness. And the reason why it's important to talk about Jesus Christ being born in Bethlehem, because he was the light for all people, American, Chinese, Russian, Arab, all around the globe. The professor in University of New Zealand said this very nicely. Let me just give you this entire quote. God is light. The image is satisfyingly complete. Light penetrates the unimaginable depths of space, far beyond the limits of human vision. In all the vastness of the great globe of vanished millennia into which the telescope can probe, the gleaming galaxies float, or tell in light how once they floated, when the effluence which we see today begin its endless journey. Without light, there is no vision, no view of reality, no confident journeying, no growth, save of chill and evil things, no health, no life. And sometimes in history, we have this phenomena called, or period called Dark Ages. And we say, well, at that point, people did not understand a lot of different things, and we designate them, we call them Dark Ages. In my view, there is no such thing as Dark Ages. Dark Ages are always around us. Today is a dark age, if you think about this. We live in the dark ages. Because, see, we have smartphones, but we have dumb people using those phones. We have fast internet, but we have a meaningful content. We have a social media, but no deep relationship or connections between people. Dark edges. We didn't progress far from the times of Herod. We still kill babies. We still have Putin, who is killing thousands of people. We didn't change much. It's still dark ages today. And the light was born for us to actually came from the area of darkness into the light of Jesus. There is only one hope. There is only one solution in this world. That's the King that was born in Bethlehem. We need Jesus today. This country needs Jesus. If you think about this, it's embarrassing today to say Merry Christmas. It's embarrassing today to say, I believe in Jesus Christ. A lot of smart people, intellectual people, think that it's embarrassing to believe that God exists. We live in the dark ages, just like it was before. But there is no life, no future, no love, no growth without the light of Christ that he brought on this earth. And I want to finish with this, the plan. It goes like this. When Herod learned that the baby was born and he would be a king, the king of all Jews, he wanted to kill him. And the angel, in verse 13, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. Now, this is a very interesting situation because if you think about this, I want to wrap it up, but I wanted to give you this perspective. When Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem, it was because of the census that was done by the king to improve his tax basis, essentially. Little did he know that he did this to fulfill the prophecy that the child would be born in Bethlehem. Imagine this, God uses the evil king to orchestrate his divine plan. And the king thinks that he is doing this for taxes, whereas he is actually fulfilling the prophecy of God. Not only that, but also, I am looking at this situation right now, the wise man brought the gift. Brother Noah mentioned about the gifts to the ministry in the Christmas time. It's appropriate, actually. In fact, I would encourage you, if you have something to bring to the ministry today, don't write just a normal check. Just put something like wise men did. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Just write on those checks something like this. I am bringing gold. That's because I am grateful for the king. Gold represents the kingship. Or write something like frankincense. I am grateful for the priest or interceding of Christ in my life. Stuff like this. So you can be creative in this situation and just make it meaningful. But there is a bigger point here, and the point is this. When they brought this gift to the child, it was a plan of God's provision for them to finance the trip to Egypt, the escape route that the baby needed to go. Because the angel says, go to Egypt. Do you know how much money it costs to go to Egypt? So they have gold, and it's not just the one gold that sometimes in nativity scene we see this gold piece. They had a lot of gold given to the family. And those presents were able to finance the whole trip and living expenses in Egypt. Imagine a family, poor family, coming to Egypt and there is no money. And he cannot even talk their language, he cannot live, so they had to have some sort of resources, and that was the provision of God way before they had actually go into the land, into Egypt. I mentioned on the last prayer, that when we moved to this location, to this campus, it didn't make any sense. We don't like this location because it's the wrong side of the river. We were looking in all dilapidated areas here around. And sometimes you have it's a poor neighborhood in many cases. People are not, when you go into some more economically developed areas, you have people who are driving nicely, they give you way. In this area, when I come here, people cut you off and look at you angrily. Just the mentality is different. So when you come here, you're like always stressed out, and you drive like that. And sometimes I would let people go, and people look at me like I'm a weirdo. Why did you have to be rude, you have to fight. And so when I became here in 2015, this whole campus was destroyed. The water was leaking, like where Sister Victoria is sitting. We had a hole to the roof, and the water was leaking right there. And we had, during the services, we had buckets of water here. Mold, asbestos, a lot of stuff that was happening. And I felt like probably what Mary felt when Joseph took her from Bethlehem with a baby, and he's saying to her, let's go to Egypt. She was like, what are you, crazy? Egypt? Why do we need to go to Egypt? That's a wrong territory. I like to live in Bethlehem. We have relatives here, we have friends in here, we have house in here, everything is situated. And Joseph says, we need to go because it's a plan. Now imagine you going to another country, it's a havoc. Do you have a house in your life? Do you have like so much chaos that you don't even know where to start? And sometimes like, God, why do I need to go through this stuff? So when we came here, I had this kind of a feeling sometimes. I'm like, God, this just doesn't make any sense. I mean, there is a lot of problems here. A lot of people from our original church left because we did not speak their language anymore. And they don't like coming here to Springfield because it's not the kind of area that these people are settled. So they left. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what's going on. I felt like Mary going to Egypt. God, this is crazy. Joseph lost his mind. And then recently I read the article about this development here. Remember this Eastville Mall? Used to be Eastville Mall here. When we bought it, the Eastville Mall was here. Still, it was very depressing. It was dying. You go there to Eastville Mall and you see everything run down. It was really bad and depressing. And everything was depressing. The church was depressing. The area was depressing. Everything was depressing. I'm like, oh my gosh, we came here and everything is dying. And then they slowly started to do certain things. They invested money in the Boston corridor. They renovated Boston corridor. Then they demolished this dying mall and they started to bring big boys into the Boston Mall, like BJ. So they're building BJs there. They building Chick-fil-A in there. They are putting Target in there and some other big boys. And when we first purchased this campus, I had no idea. And do you know how many smart people would come to me and just criticize me for this move? They said, you know what, Oleg is going down. Oleg is going down, that's it. Without realizing that God probably knew, not probably, but I know that he knew, that this is going to happen and we will be right almost in the center of this rebuilding or rejuvenating kind of area of intersection Ludlow and Wilbraham and Springfield situation. Now Mary was confused, probably, but she didn't know that God had a plan. And I want you today, amid your confusion and havoc, and asking God, God, what is it happening in my life? I'm in a free fall. I don't know what's going on. Maybe God is executing a plan in your life amidst the havoc. Give or trust God with your havoc, and God will show you the plan. That's basically the message of Christmas. God, I have no idea what is happening in my life. That's your prayer today on Christmas. Show me what I need to do. Thomas Aquinas, God's providences does not exclude the possibility of chaos. No. It does happen. It does happen like you feel like the bottom of the floor is open and you're in free fall and you're like, oh my goodness, what is happening? Listen, rather he governs all things in such a way that even apparent disorder ultimately fulfills his good purposes. I hope you're celebrating the Christmas today in the biblical way. You worship the King. And worship the King involves the present. There is nothing wrong with that. You embrace the light of God. If you don't know what it is, you just say, God, shine your light into my dark corners, filled with pain and shadows. And you follow the plan. God has a plan for your life. And maybe today, on this Christmas day, when we celebrate Christmas, you say, God, I didn't know that Christmas is all about your divine plan. Tell me where I need to go. Show me my Egypt, where I need to hide from the enemy. Show me the escape plan. Show me the route that I need to go. And on top of it, give me your provision so that I can sustain my life when I am